Welcome to the Healers Café, the number one show for medical practitioners and holistic healers to have heart to heart conversations about their day to day lives while sharing their expertise for improving your health and wellness. So, welcome to the Healers Cafe. And today I have Amanda Harris for the second time, and we're going to do a sort of follow up and open up a little bit the discussion to her online program. And I think one of the angles that at least I've been asked this so many times, and Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, but patients have, or clients have a lot of questions.
Hmm.
How do I get what I need from myself? How is it different? How would I benefit potentially more? What's the
Hmm.
group dynamic? I mean, we can go lots of places, but
Oh, yeah.
before we go there, I'll remind people a little bit your bio and what you do specifically.
Okay.
So, you've been mentored by and actively collaborated with some of the top surgeons, neurologists, manual medicine physicians, and physical therapists in the Mid-Atlantic area over the last 25 years. And that has all given you a unique perspective on how the body should move
Mhm.
and how that movement itself can help heal. And so part of your work is identifying faulty movement patterns
Mhm.
and using gentle movement and exercise to correct them. And so getting rid of back pain and often many associated other types of pain. So
Yeah.
welcome back, and maybe share a little bit about that. Not why and
Sure.
how you got there, because we got that from last time.
Yes.
But tell the audience who might be new to you a little bit what your work entails exactly.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me again, Manon. First of all, I really appreciate being back on the Healers Cafe. So a lot of what I do is I feel like I'm kind of one of those great last hopes. I think you're one of those too, where people find me when they've exhausted all the mainstream options. And so often by the time folks get to me, they are hurting quite badly and they don't have a lot of answers. And so the people that find their way to me often start with back pain, but by the time I see them, they often have other complaints like hip pain or knee pain, or sometimes even shoulder pain. And they start to get this feeling that they're falling apart. It's really it's kind of sad to see somebody in that state, that they come to you and they're almost desperate for help and they're looking at you like, I don't know about you, you're not a doctor, but the doctors haven't had a lot of answers for me at this
Mhm.
point, and so I'll try just about anything. Like tell me what to do and I'll do it. And so, we start with an assessment, and nothing that I do is not scientifically based. My mother would hate that double negative, by the way, but everything I do is based in science. And although often when we get to the end result, clients tell me it seems like magic. It's not magic. It's all based on science. And most of it is based on neurology, ironically, even though I'm not a neurologist. I've learned a lot about the nervous system over the years. And so my method really is helping the client understand what their body's trying to tell them with those painful movement patterns, and then teaching the body how to move without pain again, which often involves helping to calm the nervous system down. And I don't mean that we're just, meditating and doing things like that, although that can help, but often, stress impacts the results of this work. And people don't even realize how much the pain they've been in escalates their stress. And then if they've got job stress or relational stress or any other kind of stress on top of that, it's like their system is in fight or flight, hyper overdrive all the time. And
Yeah.
so, one of the first things we talk about is how to try to bring that down and kind of bring the alarm system back down to, out of that red alert zone and into a yellow alert zone so that we can actually operate. Because I think, like I said, by the time they get to me, when there's so much discomfort and so much frustration, and often, there's a lot of discouragement. And we just got to bring that down to where the body is in a place that it can learn something new and start to work well again. So it's an unusual way to approach pain, I think, because I think a lot of folks just jump right in and start giving exercises. And although, yeah, in the first session you do get some exercises, we also have to have a little talk about this because
Right.
once you
Mhm.
understand it, it's easier to start on the journey. If you're still
Mhm.
fighting, you can't go down the road. So
Mhm.
anyway, that's part of my unique approach. It's definitely a unique starting point, but clients tell me that it's immensely helpful to understand what's happening in their body and why they're so jacked up.
Right. Yeah, I mean, what I had forgotten is that there's a lot of similarities
Yes.
with Bowen because we also work with the nervous system.
Hmm.
And, if you've been, for example, in a car accident and you have whiplash,
Hmm.
well, you've got to deal with the trauma on the impact that that has on your nervous system
Yes.
before we start tweaking little muscles, right? Like
Right. Yeah.
it's and then people get it. It's like, oh, of course, that's why I can't seem to heal if I go to my let's
Yeah. Pick
XYZ,
your
right?
other. Yes.
Yeah, you know.
Exactly.
And, I think that part hasn't taken its place in history well enough, but I think we're trying
Right.
hard, right?
Yes, we're trying hard. We are. And hopefully we're making a big impact with
Yeah.
everybody that walks through our doors. That's the
Yes,
big thing.
exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
Now, so this course, because not everyone has the courage to put things online.
Hmm.
Uh, what motivated you to do that? How's it different for you? How does it work? Let's talk about that.
Sure. Well, I'm afraid what motivated me originally is not very exciting because so many people have a story like this. It basically happened during COVID when the government shut us
Right.
down and I couldn't see clients. And, you know, when you're in that situation and you're a small business owner, which I am, the first thing that hits you is, oh my gosh, how am I going to eat? And so my husband, who's also a small business owner, but had an online business at the time, we immediately went into problem solving mode about it. And one of the first things he said to me was, "Can you do any of this online?" And honestly, Manon, a lot like you, I was so used to having my hands on people and having them in front of me, I could not imagine how I could do this work online. And
Mhm.
it probably took me at least 4 weeks. I joke that I ran around with my hands on my head, going, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do for about 4 weeks, trying to figure out how I was going to survive that shutdown. And then somewhere along the way, I thought, I've got to be able to do something online. And so a lot of like what I described to you, about the nervous system, I sort of delved back into the books that I had where I had done some learning, either distance learning or maybe some textbook learning, or even one of the methods that I use called Red Cord. I kind of dove back into some of the pedagogy from Red Cord, and I looked at like what are we actually doing here with these exercises? Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
this is different for a reason. Is there any way that I can talk people through similar exercises,
Mhm.
even though I can't put them on my equipment? And so I sort of just went into big time problem solving mode. I started tweaking a lot of the home exercises that I gave clients. I started creating real micro progressions, like little teeny tiny progressions of my exercises to see if I could get a similar result that I
Mhm.
was getting in the office. And then I started calling people, and I just called some of my most dear, regular, longtime clients and said, "Hey, will you experiment with me? And
Mhm.
all I ask is that if you like it, will you do some sessions with me online? And if
Mhm.
you don't like it, tell me why you don't like it, like why it's not working for you." And I think I wound up doing close to 15 to 20 sessions a week once
Mhm.
I started offering them, and people actually really liked them. So much so that I've had a couple that have stayed online, even though they are within driving distance to my office. They have
Mhm.
chosen to see me online, like
Mhm.
ongoing, because it's more convenient. They don't have to drive in.
Right. Mhm.
And so I realized there was something there. And then from there, I just thought, like, are there similarities enough in how I start people off that I could create a course that
Mhm.
has a menu of different exercises at every level,
Mhm.
but so it allows for some customization, but that we hit all the similar notes, we hit all the right movement patterns. It's just that, customer A, client A might be doing, numbers one, two, and three of a level one, um, option. And if I have six exercises in there, I might have a second customer or client that's doing, numbers two, four, and five, or something like that. And so it offered a way, I created a way for us to kind of semi-customize the experience.
Right.
And then I also I tried at first I thought, maybe this was okay as just a self-paced course. And then I
Mhm.
found out, as a lot of people did, that self-paced courses don't work for people like us because the students, with all the best intentions, start it and then
Mhm.
they don't keep going because they just don't have the motivation. And so that's when I added the weekly Zoom sessions. And the weekly Zoom sessions have turned out to be so valuable because there's a community there, there's a support system
Mm.
there
Yeah, yeah.
that I think a lot of my one-on-one people, my in-person people kind of envy. Because you
Right.
can feel really alone when you're hurting,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
if you're the only one in your family with back pain. It can
Yeah.
feel very lonely. You can feel like, is this just me? Like, why is my body falling apart? Why is this my experience and nobody else is like me? And then suddenly you're dropped into this community of other people going, you know what? That used to happen to me too, but I got through it doing these exercises and you will too. Or, I
Mhm.
had a setback last week, but this is what I did and it really helped me. And you start seeing those connections and you start seeing the hope blossom.
Right.
You see friendships getting made. It is very cool. And
Mm.
so then I realized I was like, oh, this is really good.
Yeah.
Um, and I really enjoyed it. And then Manon, the latest iteration that I've added, because I wanted to create an even more customized experience, I wanted to create a higher touch experience. So
Mm.
I added using this free app that you can get through the App Store called Voxer.
Okay.
Voxer. It's
Yeah.
it's free, and I'm not getting paid anything to tell you about it, but it's a walkie-talkie app, and it's so cool because you can talk, you can text, you can talk into it, and it'll record, and then it'll ping me that somebody's left me a message, and I can listen to it between in-person clients. I can listen
Mhm.
to it on
Mhm.
my ride home. I can answer faster than if somebody calls me and leaves me a voicemail or
Mhm.
emails
Mhm.
me or even sends me a text message because I don't know about you, but my text messages are full. But I
Yeah.
look at that Voxer app probably 20 times a day because I know those are my online people and
Mhm.
I am constantly in communication with them. So they feel like they've got a lifeline and I've got a way to touch them and keep them motivated and keep them coming.
Mhm.
It's so neat. And it also allows me to kind of direct their experience. So if they get through a series of exercises and they have questions or they want to know what's next, I can tell them.
Right.
It's
Yeah, yeah.
really been amazing how I can take what I love about my in-person and make it work online. It's
Mm.
amazing.
Mm. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I had also a little bit of a positive experience despite,
Yeah.
a lot of resistance. It's like
Yeah.
can't teach, hands-on therapy because it was
Hmm.
actually to teach the therapy,
Yeah.
right? Not to do it, but to teach.
Uh-huh.
And I resisted that, like, oh, there's no way, there's no way. And I was wrong because
So you teach it online too now?
well, not at all exclusively. It's an
Okay.
option, and
Okay.
of the times they need to do certain hours, it's
Mm-hmm.
allowed, one
Mm-hmm.
time. But it
Oh,
makes
okay.
a huge difference because their perspective in
Mm-hmm.
being part of a group and listening online in the comfort of their home is
Yes.
different. So I've had a lot of very positive feedback on it,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting. It's like sometimes you just have to move things around a little bit and see what happens, right? And
I
if
think
it,
so.
if it what like I didn't go exclusively on because
Mm-hmm.
in the end, like how could I? certify somebody or recommend them
Yeah, if
if
you
I
can't
haven't
see
even,
their work.
yeah,
Yes,
or even felt it on my body or one of my instructors, right?
right.
So like
Hmm.
there's limits.
Yeah,
But I found it also as the observer, you're in a slightly different mode when you're watching through a screen.
yes,
You pick up different things than you might pick up in person.
that's true.
So I found it worked quite well. So
Yeah.
very interesting. Yeah.
It is really interesting, and
Yeah.
I have really loved the feedback, and it's evolved over time, and I would argue it's still evolving.
Mhm.
I get feedback from everybody that's in the program. I'm asking them constantly, like, always feel free to give me feedback on a process or a thing that I've asked you to do, or a video. Like if there's a video in the course that they feel like needs to go deeper, I'm always open to that. And what I have loved is every once in a while I'll get somebody that is interested in getting into the course, especially because of the convenience factor. It's a lot to, have all the things that we have to do on our plates, and then you got to drive somewhere for some kind of a therapeutic modality or something,
Mhm.
right? Like that's one more appointment, one more trip out and back, etc. And so, part of what has been really appreciated is that they can practice, wherever they are, whenever they are, and
Mhm.
get their work done. But the one of the big questions is always, well, how do I know I'm doing my exercises right?
What would your life be like if you were pain free? If you were one of the millions who suffer from chronic pain, the thought of just one day without it may seem impossible. This is often because conventional medicine tends to fall short in the treatment of pain, opting to prescribe pills or recommend surgery rather than getting to the root cause of the problem. But if you are suffering with emotional or physical pain, there is hope. Join the founder and CEO of Bowen College, Manon Bolliger, live online for your body-mind reboot. Learn how to listen to your symptoms and get to the root cause of your pain. Plus, be trained in basic Bowen therapy moves so that you can reboot your body for optimal health. You don't have to live in pain. You can heal. Stop the pain pill cycle by visiting www.yourbodymindreboot.com to learn more and to register.
Right.
Right. Hmm.
Yeah, and so we address that often in the weekly sessions, especially if somebody has a question about what they're feeling in an exercise or what the exercise is supposed to be teaching them. And so we'll do a deeper dive into the exercise. But then I've also learned to just say, well, let's see if we can schedule a one-on-one session. So if they're out of state or something, then we'll do it via Zoom. But
Hmm.
if they're local, then they can come in for that one-on-one session. And it
Sure.
might be a one-off or it might be a once a month, but what I've learned is that people need to experience this work differently. And
Hmm.
so not everybody's cut out for the online piece, but there are a lot of people that are cut out for a hybrid version, which has been
Right.
really neat. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I think for the longest time I was thinking it was either or, but to your point, it's kind of nice to bring the two ends together
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
can be very effective that way.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm getting to the point where I actually really like it more than just the straight one-on-ones because I think the access to those videos where I'm teaching the exercises and you can
Right.
watch me teach that exercise again and again and again. Like
Exactly.
you can keep rewinding it. Whereas
Yeah.
if you're an in-person client, it's you got me for the hour and then you get home and you can read the instructions because I send
Yeah.
home instructions, but it's like, I don't know if I remember this. So
Right. Right.
I feel like in a
Yeah.
lot of ways my online folks have an advantage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it also lends itself to like a membership type of way of
Yeah.
doing things where you could have
Mhm.
your live clients come in,
Yep.
but you could sort of lead them in with sort of necessary education, where
Yeah.
you would have like a month of free. I mean, I'm just throwing ideas out, but
Yeah. Oh,
where
I love the ideas.
they get educated, they know how it works, what to expect, and
Hmm.
then they continue at whatever rate. It has to be
Yeah.
something reasonable for people to. to value, but also that they
Yeah.
can, they're going to stick to it. And then
Yes.
all the exercises are there, the repetition is there, because
Yep.
it's such a great feeling. I know in homeopathy it's not physical at all, but I used to teach classes,
Uh-huh.
and just on acute, for like a tinnitus media or basic stuff that you can do for your family.
Hmm.
And patients would love coming in and saying, "Well, I tried this because it looked like that,"
Uh-huh.
the basic stuff, and it's like,
Yeah.
and it worked, or it didn't work, whatever, because homeopathy is very complicated.
Oh,
You don't
sure.
always get it, but
Uh-huh.
there are ways of getting it, and just the knowledge that could be shared where they could, go through this and feel competent in it.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
really exciting, when you're they're
It
saying,
is.
is this how you do the exercise again? Like,
Yes.
and they're participating actively in their improvement, right?
Yes. Yeah. And
You know.
like I said, it's just so much fun for me to have those group sessions weekly and watch the
Mhm.
growth and watch the ahas. I mean, that's one of my
Yeah,
favorite things about what I do is that
yeah,
moment where the person goes, "Oh," and you see that,
yeah.
right? You see
Yeah.
that epiphany and man, that's like an elixir to me. When I see them get it and it's like, "Oh, I understand this. This is what this is supposed to feel like. This is amazing." It's like,
Right.
"Yes." Yes. So,
And, and the other thing is for referrals. So
hmm.
often people would say to me, "Oh, God, what do I tell them you do?" Because,
Oh, yes.
it's like, oh my God, like,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
like it works, but what do I say?
Yeah, I
It's
don't
like,
know how to describe what you do. I get that so many
yeah,
times. Like, I have clients that'll say, I was trying to tell my friend about you because she really needs your help, but I did not know how to tell them
exactly.
about what you do. Yeah, it's very difficult to
Yeah.
describe.
And therefore, if you have this kind of membership thing or it's an introduction and they
Hmm.
actually find out, see it,
Hmm.
start being part of a community that,
Yeah.
goes on or doesn't, it's their choice. But
Yeah.
it's a great way to I'm always a creator, so I
Oh, I love this idea. Yeah, you got my wheels turning now. You got me really thinking about this. That's
yeah.
great.
Anyway, I always see the potential in what is, and then how to spread it, and to enjoy what we do, right? Like,
Yes.
it's fun. Little changes, and all
Hmm.
that makes such a difference.
Oh,
It's
yes.
exciting, right? It's like, and then you find another. It's almost like a slightly different language, and
Hmm.
anyway,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, it is fun. I mean, like I said, the most fun thing for me is just watching the light go into their eyes when they
yeah.
get, and you're just like, oh, that's it. That's what I was looking for.
Mhm.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So do you have like the most common questions, like FAQs, that people ask? Like,
Frequently asked questions
yeah,
about my method, about the course. Like, what are we?
either or actually. It could be about the method. So that, let's say
Mhm.
the brand new people that your clients want to refer. And then there's the
Oh,
question.
yes. One of the questions that I get asked with some regularity because one thing I have learned is that it's a lot easier to have a client that is already bought and sold on exercise.
Right,
If
right.
somebody is averse to exercise, and I've had those clients before, and boy, that is really hard. That's pushing the rock up the hill because they don't like to move, they don't want to move, and they sort of feel forced into something that they're trying to do this to deal with the pain, but they don't really want to be there. That's a very different animal than the person
Yeah.
who really believes exercise has a solution for them. They just haven't found it yet. And that's how I was with it. That's where my
Mhm.
method was born out of, was my desire to get exercise to do the job instead of injections and pills and surgeries. And so um, I would say one of the biggest questions I get because I serve an audience that's already loving exercise is, do I have to quit working out? Do I have to quit
Mhm.
training?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because many of my clients come to me because they're tired of having pain after their workouts or after their training, or sometimes at the end of their training. They'll get back pain when they're doing something physical.
Right.
And it frustrates them because their identity has always been wrapped up in being an athlete or being very
Mm-hmm.
physical. And now that physicality is causing pain. And they're scared I'm going to tell them to quit working out. And I'll be honest, there are people that after a while, I just say, okay, we need to cool it for 2 weeks and see if we can get you through this storm. And then let's tiptoe back into it again. But a lot of people I will tell, yeah, you can continue to work out as long as your workouts aren't causing pain, right? So if there are
Right.
things that we have to omit temporarily so that we can get to the other side and then you can start resuming them again, great. But what I,
Mm.
I really try very hard never to tell somebody, no, you can't work out while you're doing the first 6 weeks of this work,
Yeah.
because I think it's very hard on their mental and emotional state, because they often use that as their stress control, and it's
Correct.
wrapped up in
Yeah.
their identity and all of that. And so I try very hard to say, yes, you can keep exercising, just make sure that you're choosing things that don't cause you pain afterwards. And then
Hmm.
that ensues a big conversation, but that's probably one of the biggest ones. And so because I very much believe in exercise and I very much believe in movement, I also know that when the body is hurting, we often have to lower the challenge to the system, you know,
Hmm.
and that often means backing off on intensity of exercise,
Right. Right. Yeah.
or load, like how much are we putting on this body and causing the pain.
Yeah.
Um, and so often it's a bit of a gray area, but that's probably one of the frequently asked questions. And my answer is always, well, it depends, which is so unsatisfying, but it really is a case by case business. And I do my very best to not have to say, no, you can't do anything but these exercises, because I don't really believe that's right. You know?
Yeah. Right. No, no. And it's better to teach them to become more connected and intuitive to what their bodies can handle and can't,
Yes. Yeah.
than follow some sort of, authority that says this and that, because
Yeah.
those days are gone. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I mean, let's face it, the whole reason we're doing this is so they can enjoy whatever they were doing without the pain.
yeah.
It's just that temporarily we might have to peel back how much or how hard they're going
Yeah.
so that it's not creating the pain, because we've got to
Yeah.
get them out of that stress cycle of pain and fight or flight and all that stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
But that's probably the biggest one.
yeah. What do you think is, or what is the most common cause of back pain that you see?
Mm. Um, well, that's a really good question. I got to think about that a little bit. I think it's often, well, I'll go two ways. I think there are two different ones. I
Hmm.
think one of them is sitting postures and too much sitting. There's like a combo there. Um, most of us modern humans sit too much anyway, too much, whatever
Yeah.
too much is. Because I think, you know, if we didn't sit in chairs, we would sit better, don't you think? Like if we didn't sit in chairs, and,
Hmm.
and I mean from the get-go, I don't mean now, because now our
Hmm.
bodies are so used to chairs. But I think if we didn't have chairs to sit in, you think about like people in a third world country that are squatting to eat and sitting on the floor to eat and things
Hmm.
like that. Um, we would move more, because when you
Right.
sit in a chair, you fidget and you squirm because it's not
Hmm.
very comfortable to stay there for very
No,
long.
no, no.
And so,
Exactly.
I think chair sitting, and then the expectation that we should be able to sit in a chair for so long, which starts in grade school, right? Sit in that chair and don't get out of it until I tell you, right?
Hmm.
And so we get into these things where I think we ask our bodies to sit and be still too long, and then folks find a way to prop themselves that is
Hmm.
quasi comfortable, and then over time that creates too much pressure somewhere and can cause a lot of back pain. So I feel like I see a lot of back pain from
Hmm.
bad sitting. Um, and then I also see a lot of back pain from kind of ignored, what do I say? Ignored, like aches and pains and injuries. You know,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
I tweaked my knee, but I'm going to pretend I didn't, and I'm going to
Right.
keep running, or I'm going to put a sleeve on it and I'm going to keep running. Or, I turned my ankle, but I don't really need to go to PT for that, right? So I'm going to keep
Mhm.
walking or I'm going to keep running with
Yeah.
a semi-sprained ankle. Or, so I feel like often the chronic back pains come out of sort of innocent-ish injuries that were just never
Mhm.
fully addressed and never fully, can I say, rehabilitated?
Yeah.
Like the
Mhm.
joint was never taught how to move well again. And so it created an
Mhm.
unevenness in the body
Yeah.
that manifests maybe years later as back pain because there's been so much unevenness and uneven movement, often with walking, right? So,
Right.
a
Yeah.
stiff
Yeah.
ankle or a stiff knee or a stiff hip, you walk like that for years and years and years,
Yeah.
it's going to show up in your back.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah.
Literally like a crutch.
Yeah, and I think
It's,
I think people they have the injury. Sometimes it's even in middle school or high school and they forget about it and they just, move around it for years and years and years until it shows up in their back and it becomes a real
yeah.
problem. And
Yeah.
often, when I start asking questions in a history, and especially if I notice movement is limited somewhere, and I'll say, "Did you ever injure this part?" And somebody will be like, "Oh, well, playing basketball in eighth grade, or, you know,
Mhm.
fell water skiing when I was in high school." I hadn't thought about that in years, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes as a smoking gun, I
Yep.
think. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure.
mhm.
I can't believe it. Our time's already up.
Oh my gosh.
Part two, and we're done.
Yeah.
But
Wow. Wow.
so how do people get in touch with if they're interested, let's say for an intro or just to take your course or work with you? What's the best way?
Well, you can email me directly at amanda@reconnect.com, which I'm guessing you're going to put in the show notes because I
Yeah.
spelled reconnect kind of funny,
Hmm.
right? Connect is like kinetic. And then you can also look me up on Instagram. That's Reconnect RVA. So if you're on Instagram and you want to kind of take a look at what I've been posting and get a little idea about my content, you can look at me there. You can also go to my site, which is reconnect.com, and you can learn a little bit more about my method and about who I am from there. You can also contact me through my website. So, several different ways to reach out to me. I'm always happy to answer questions, to meet new people. So, yeah, I would love it if anybody who's curious about what I'm doing would like to reach out. I will absolutely email you back.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, and it was lovely speaking to you again.
Yeah, it's great speaking with you again, Manon.
Yeah. All right. So the highlight for the discussion with Amanda Harris would, for me, is really aimed at practitioners. If you find yourself, repeating the same thing, or you can see a commonality in your, first few visits or parts like the, frequently asked questions, that's a good moment to consider going online and giving that as a bonus or a membership. That's what I'm looking for. A bonus or a membership, or a program, if you're so that they can follow in case it is more convenient for them to do things online. And I really like her model where you can do it online, but you can also come in and get, extra sessions that are very specific to you so that you're um, able to adapt it to yourself more easily. And at the same time, she also shared how patients then can listen to the videos over and over and therefore get the exercises right. Because I know when I did physio and after I got home, I took little notes and it's like, not getting it exactly. What am I supposed to do? And so if you have videos for all this, it's really helpful for your patients. Thank you for joining us at the Healers Cafe. If you haven't already done so, please like, comment, and subscribe with notifications on as I post a new podcast every Wednesday with tons of useful information and tips for natural healing that you won't want to miss.